Today we are making a tincture with Amanita muscaria. Specifically, we're working with the yellow Fly Agaric here in Pennsylvania, which is fresh. And there's a reason why I'm using fresh mushrooms. I'll explain in a little bit. This mushroom is going under some taxonomical name changes. Previously referred to as Amanita muscaria variation guessowii. Now it's up for debate. A lot of people are starting to call it Amanita Chrysoblema. Anyway, for all intents and purposes, it's the yellow Fly Agaric. Now typically whenever I'm making Amanita tinctures, I'm using dehydrated mushrooms and I'm doing a full decarboxylation. But for this specific tincture, I'm using raw mushrooms and I'm not applying any heat or pH change. And that is very intentional. I'm actually trying to preserve the ibotenic acid as best I can. The reason for this is because I'm trying to make something that is going to give energy. It's going to be a little more uplifting. It's a completely different experience than a fully decarbed Amanita tincture. I'm going to start by weighing out 500 grams, and I'm kind of breaking these up so that they fit better. And I'm removing any pine needles, any debris. I'm going to wash this one off because these needles are stuck on here. I'm shaking it dry because I don't want the water from washing it to affect the weight. Now these mushrooms and most mushrooms are about 90% water weight. Whenever I'm doing my calculations, I'm considering that. I'm up to 200. Look how beautiful these are. What a blessing it is to work with these beautiful mushrooms. I'm just doing the caps right now. I will add the stems, but the reason why I'm just doing the caps is that there is the most active compounds of ibotenic acid and muscimol inside of the cap. There are compounds in the stems. There's some other compounds that don't exist in the caps that exist in the stems only. And I also like to, as much as it makes sense, work with an entire plant or an entire mushroom and do a full extraction, full spectrum. Now a lot of these caps are going to be very strong. I know it. They are unveiled. Most of them are unveiled or partially veiled. And they're just before the cap spreads out and opens up. That is one of the most potent stages. Look at that. 330. Almost there. Look at that. Skin peels right off. This one's a little bit older. It's still good, but it's not going to be as potent as those smaller ones. So bigger is not always better. Although sometimes you got a small one that's a chunky boy. Look at that. Look at this little cutie. Oh my gosh. $4.99. 0.9, 0.8. Close enough. So now I'm going to add these mushrooms to my jar here. And I'm going to weigh out half of that weight because I'm making 2 parts cap to 1 part stem. Alright, so now I'm going to weigh out 250 grams of stem. Alright, 250. I'm going to write this all down before I forget. So I still have some room in my jar and I still have more mushrooms. So I'm going to push this down and I'm going to basically just keep going up to as much as I can fill. Look at this chunky boy. Look at you. Beautiful. Like that's a stem? What the heck is that? I bet this one is really potent. Okay, got another 396 for the caps. So in order to be precise, I am just double checking my math. 396 divided by 2, 198. I will add 198 grams of stem. And just to be safe, again on my math, to make sure I have 2/3 stem, or 2/3 cap and 1/3 stem, I'm adding the cap weight, total of 896. And the stem weight, 250 plus 198, 448. Total weight between the stems and caps is 1,344 grams. And just for anybody's math brain not working, if you divide it out by 3, you get 448. So there's 3 parts of 448, which I'm trying to do 2/3 stem, or 2/3 cap and 1/3 stem, and my stem weight is 448. I divided the total weight by 3, so I get 448. That's how I got 3 parts. And then if I multiply that by 2, 896, and that's how I get the 2/3. So 896 plus 448, 13, whatever that number was, 1344. So now I'm gonna add the stems in, or the caps. Man, I keep fucking up stems and caps. Alright, now I'm going to add that 198 of the stem. I've got to add the chonky boy. Oh my gosh. Let's just see how much this one stem weighs. Oh my gosh. That one stem weighed 84 grams. That is nuts. So I'm getting up to 198. 199.5. Close enough. Hey, that looks like a pretty full jar. Look at that. Wow. Done with the scale. Put that away. Alright, now we need to add our solvent. So, because I am trying to get as much ibotenic acid as possible out of this, I'm going to use 95% organic grain-free ethanol. Normally, whenever I would do an extraction for the muscimol, I would be doing a water extraction. But for this purpose, especially too, because I'm using raw mushrooms and 90% of the weight in here is water itself, adding ethanol will more than likely result in a tincture that is somewhere around 50% alcohol. I could do a probability calculator on that, but I know if I use 95% ethanol that I'm going to extract mostly ibotenic acid and not a whole lot of muscimol, and it's also going to result in a tincture that whenever it's diluted with the water that's already in these mushrooms, that it's going to be safe, because if I use something like 30% alcohol or 20% or maybe even 50% alcohol, that the resulting tincture would actually be so diluted that there would not be enough alcohol to preserve this to make it shelf stable, which could result in botulism or mold or whatever. So I'm going to add 95% ethanol, and I'm going to do a ratio. So I'm going to be using a recipe that my friend Mercer suggested, which is for every 500 grams use 5 ounces of ethanol. And I realized that this should be a lot more compressed if I'm only going to be adding 13 ounces. So I might end up doubling it, because the important thing with the tincture is that you actually cover the material. I'm also cleaning my hands before everything and whenever I'm touching my phone, so I am using clean hands. Normally I'd be using gloves if I'm doing lab work, but I really like feeling the fresh mushrooms, getting intimate with the medicine that I'm working with, having that tactile sensation. Yeah, I don't know if 13.4 ounces is going to work for this 134 or 1,344 grams. Yeah, we'll see. I might just have to cover it, but I'm going to measure it so that I know exactly how much I'm putting in. I'll just keep adding as we go. We'll start with our 13.4 ounce suggestion and go from there. Yay! Okay, so we're going to add about 400 milliliters, which is about 13.4 ounces of, this is 95% organic grain-free ethanol. Some pine needles in there, but I'll give it a little extra flavor. What do you think? More alcohol? I don't know, actually that might work. I mean, if you make it compressed enough, I just want to make sure it's fully saturated. I don't want any air pockets. That's how we create botulism. Don't want any bacterial growth in here. We're using raw mushrooms, so it's really important that we are covering everything with the ethanol. Everything's fully saturated. Let's see if we can compress it down. It's just like making sauerkraut, people. It's not that hard. You gotta make it fully saturated, compress it down, and you want there to be a little extra on top, so that everything that you're extracting is not. What the fuck is calling me? Alright, so not feeling super great about this. I'm thinking it probably would be okay. I'm trying to compress it as much as I can. This is really, this is gonna be friggin' potent. You don't mess around, Mercer. See, it's starting to work a little bit better now. But I'm still not feeling super great about this because it's not fully submerged on its own. So I'm worried that whenever I actually just let this sit, it's not going to be fully covered. So what I'm going to do is add another 200 mLs of 95% ethanol. And that'll definitely cover it. Now, one thing I could do if I had it is put something like I don't know what they call it, crock weight, something to stick inside of here that'll weigh everything down. But I'm just gonna make sure there's no mushroom material on the side walls and call it a day. Look at that. This is going to be potent, I can tell already. Holy crap, it's already getting a lot of color. Yeah, alright. Seal it up. Speak a prayer over it. Thank you, Amanita Spirit, for so many different ways that I can enjoy you. May this extraction be full and rich and give myself and a lot of people a lot of medicine and energy. I'll see you in 2 moon cycles. So it is. 2 moons later. Okay, so I have my jar full of tincture. I've shaken it a couple times a week, kept it in a dark place, kept this one cool because I didn't want to apply heat. I got this pesky filter bag here. And you can see that the filter bag is not cooperating. It's a bit of a challenge. But in the meantime, we can just hold it. And so we're just filtering out all the mushroom material from the liquid. Now, if I was doing a larger batch than this, I would be using, I have a 12-ton press with some stainless steel plates. But I'm just doing this the old-fashioned way, just squeezing it by hand. Takes a lot of time. And more time. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is check the alcohol content. Because I was working with fresh mushrooms, I was using 95% ethanol, but I just want to make sure that this is at least 25%. So I'm using a hygrometer, so volumetric flask here, or whatever you call it, I don't know. Long tube flasky. And this is a hygrometer that floats and tells you the alcohol content. And much to my amazement, it was only 15% alcohol from 95% ethanol. So I'm really glad. I was maybe thinking, oh, it would be like 50% alcohol or something strong. Nope, 15% alcohol. So what I'm going to do now is add enough 95% ethanol to make it 25% so that it's shelf stable. 15% might be shelf stable, but I don't want to risk it. I'm going with 25. So I'm just doing a little calculation here. And found a converter online, which is really helpful. Distillingspirits.com has a lot of different alcohol calculators. So now the overall volume is going to be 1,660. Add some 95% ethanol. And voila. We have 25% overall alcohol level. And that's basically it. Fully raw yellow Fly Agaric tincture. Now, I haven't tried it yet. I'm going to do alchemical preparation, add the calcined salts, and but this should be a very energizing, very potent tincture, and it was a lot of fun to make. If you guys want to see more videos like this and a lot of other things, give this video a like and give me a follow. Also check me out on Instagram, harmony_acres, and all things Amanita. I'll leave the links in the description. I'm just figuring out the grams per volume. It's a different calculator online. So it got 809 milligrams per milliliter.